All right, welcome back to the Natty News Daily podcast. Rolling solo again. I'm here with Justin Penn, who on Instagram, if you don't know who Justin Penn is, naturally supernatural on Instagram, recently making waves, winning the Florida Pro, defeating a former Mr. America, Corey Brown, even. Justin, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How about you, buddy?
Good, good. So we were
Yeah.
just talking off air a little bit, saying that, I've seen you in the scene for a few years now, popping up, and you know, every time you compete, it relates back to the conversation we had off air. Every time you compete, you draw eyes like myself. But I don't know that much about you as a person, and maybe your early competitive history. So why don't we quickly, briefly, why don't you quickly introduce yourself, who you are, where you live, how old you are, how long you've been competing, that kind of stuff, and then we can get into maybe some nuts and bolts, nitty gritty.
Gotcha. Cool, man. Yeah. Again, Justin Penn. Most people call me JP. Man, currently live in North Carolina. I've been in North Carolina for, I think this is 20 years now. I came here for school originally. My folks, we moved here and just kind of settled here ever since. I went to college in North Carolina A&T. Um, I am about to turn 37 in a few months later on this year. So um, I've been competing since 2012, 13. Did a few shows, kind of got my feet wet. I turned pro in 2016. That was originally with the WNBF. I obtained an OCB pro card. Uh, and then now I guess you could say I'm a USBF pro as well.
Very
So
cool. Very cool.
been going at it for a little while now.
And which of
About
those
10,
pro
12 years.
statuses have you maintained then?
OCB pro and well now USBF pro.
Gotcha.
I'm really excited about doing a lot in the USBF. I've been kind of looking at them for a few years now, and just kind of like eyeballing some shows. And the Florida Pro was, I guess, first off the list, just because of the rapport and
Yeah,
what I saw from Daryl and Holly, running the show. It was very, I knew that was one that I had to put towards the top of my list before I hang it up.
you already talking about hanging it up. Come on, man. But because you competed mostly in the OCB in your previous
Yep,
season, if I
yep,
remember. You competed at
yep,
Yorton, right?
yep. Yes, sir.
What year was that? If you don't reminded me, was that
The
2022 or 2021?
the last
No, it
year
would
I
have been
did
2021 because I competed at Yorton 2021. I would have seen you.
no, it was actually the last year I did Yorton was 2018.
Was
Yeah,
it that long
2018.
ago? Holy
Yep.
crap.
Yeah, 20. No, I was scheduled and registered for the Yorton in 21, but I got COVID like 2 days out from the show.
Oh shit.
So
Okay.
I couldn't do I couldn't do the show. But
Maybe that's why I
yeah,
thought you were competing right around that time frame. But
yeah,
yeah. Okay.
it was a lot of promotion and everything, like a lot of talk around 2021 about me doing the Yorton. I just never actually did it.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah, I was actually supposed to have done the Mr. America, which was a couple weeks before Yorton,
Yeah.
but I tore my left bicep like 2 weeks before that. So I decided to sit Mr. America out and just kind of
And then you
rest
got
up and get
double
and get
whammy
ready
with
for it.
COVID.
Yeah,
Man,
so it is what it
that
is.
sucks.
And
Yeah, this,
ironically, like we spoke before, speaking about Mr. Former Mr. America Corey Brown, that was the year that we first met and where he actually gave me that L. So the plan was to go against him again, a couple months later at the Mr. America, and then also again at the Yorton. So none of that fell through. So I mean, it all fell through. None of it came through. And then so yeah, to this year at the Florida Pro was our first meeting since 2021.
rematch. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm bummed you
yeah, I
missed
was
2021 Mr. America. I competed that year, and that was
yeah.
that was an awesome time.
Yeah, I was there. I just wasn't on stage. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, you were there. So
yeah,
maybe I didn't see you there. Okay.
yeah, yeah. I was in
Possible.
the spot. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. So, but yeah, man. I mean, I've done mostly. I did some WNBF in the big, like when I first turned pro, but most of my career has been with the OCB.
okay, okay. What's the reason for that?
Um, I started with the OCB. I'm very loyal to a fault. I've always had a good experience with the OCB. Like every show that I did, I never really had any complaints about it. And I never was a type of person to, I never wanted to just go from show to show to show. I always wanted to make improvements every time I stepped on stage. That was very important to me. So as a result, I never did like a whole bunch of shows together. So like I would do a show and then maybe take like a year or two, sometimes as much as 2.5, 3 years off before I did another show. So it was always just convenient to come back to another OCB show or an OCB
Yeah.
show that I've already done before. So I know I've had at least one OCB show, the No Gear Classic, that I've done probably 4, 5, 6 times. So I did a lot of repeat shows. So
You've done a
it
lot of
was
good shows because all these shows like you're talking about, I've heard good things about the No Gear as well.
yeah. Well, I always looked for competition too. So like I wanted to make a statement every time I stepped on stage, even if that statement was only to myself, in being I'm better than the last time I presented. So another thing that I also looked for was, well, where's the competition? Because I really don't know how good I am unless I stand against people that like are a challenge, right? So I never wanted to go to a show just because like, oh, they were paying this much, or I always look for where was the reputation for good competition. And I just always wanted to level up. So each year I just wanted to level up. And that's always been the kind of the drive as far as, I get a lot of people that send me stuff to say, hey, come do my show, come, especially now that I've
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
a little bit of a following. And honestly, I've even had promoters that will literally told me that I didn't have to pay a dime. They just wanted me to come, to kind of, I guess, boost the prestige of the show. But when I looked at the previous years and looked at some of the competition, like to me, it didn't really stack up for me. So like that's probably not a show that I'm gonna be trying to rush to do. Like I want to go to do a show where I don't know that I'm gonna win,
Yeah.
you know? So and that's kind of like I know I might be jumping ahead a little bit, but that's kind of what sparked my interest in competing in the NPC last year, is to be able to like I shouldn't be able to beat any of these guys. So let's do it, you know?
You see more and more guys taking on that challenge. And did you do the compete in classic or in open or
I did
both?
I did both. I did bodybuilding. So last year I did a non-sanctioned show, just kind of like a warm up, just because it was here local to me.
Yeah.
And I didn't owe the promoter a favor, but like I said, I'm loyal. I really wanted to help
Yeah.
her out. So I said, I'll do your show. And that was my first venture into classic, but I did classic and bodybuilding. But I'm not a very big guy, so I know at my lean or at my best, I would probably need to come like I'm right in between. I'm probably a decent middleweight, but I probably need to look my best at right at the bottom end of light heavy. Just I'm just not big enough for the light heavies in the
Yeah. And an
NPC.
untested org, it's a completely different
They're
ballgame.
Yeah, they're massive. So I came down to middleweight. I did the show. I swept the show. It was one of those shows where I really kind of felt bad for doing, because it's like some of these people, this is like their first time competing, like they're just getting introduced to the sport, and then they see someone like me come in, and it's just like it can be kind of discouraging. So I didn't feel really great about doing that show, but I did feel good about helping out the promoter because, like I said, I was loyal, and she's always supported me through my career. So from there, I went. That was April 1st, 2023. From there, I went to Charlotte because, like I said, I do live in North Carolina. I know Charlotte's a pretty big show because it has the IFBB Pro attached to it. Um, that show attached to it. So I did the
Did
Charlotte Cup.
Kendall do it do that show too?
Kendall did the Arnold.
Yeah, but what
Yeah.
did he did a show prior to qualify though.
Oh yeah, he did. Oh, I don't
I
remember. He didn't
I
do
was
that
thinking it
one.
was Charlotte, but maybe it wasn't.
I don't. He didn't do Charlotte. He didn't do
Okay.
Charlotte. No, I do remember him doing. I can't remember. Now that's someone who I definitely would
Want to
like.
want to
Yeah,
compete against?
yeah. Like I don't think I could uh hold a candle to him because he's one of he's one of my favorites as far as natural pros. So, but yeah, I've always wanted to stand on stage with him. But yeah, I did the Charlotte. I did the middleweight. I did masters middleweight bodybuilding, and I also did classic. So I did three categories. I won open middleweight, and then I won masters middleweight, and I placed second in classic. So all three qualified me for nationals, and then I went to junior USA. And then at Junior USA, I only did classic because they only gave out pro cards in classic. Um,
How'd that? Yeah.
that was a very interesting experience. Overall, as far as my placing, uh, I think I did very well. Coming down to middleweight, the middleweight before the NPC increased their weight caps was I think 173 and a quarter or 174. So for me, I'm ready. I'm stage ready around like 180, 182.
How tall
So
are you?
I'm 5'7" and 3/4, 5'8". So that was kind of the thing there. Because in Charlotte, in the NPC, they hided me at, and so I was in the class A, so I was around 5'7".
Yeah.
But Junior USA, they hided me at 5'8", which put me in class B, which was the biggest class. So I'm going up against guys that are like 5'10", which their cutoff was 198.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big difference, between 198 and 173. But yeah, I did pretty good. I was content. I wasn't satisfied, but I was content. I placed eighth. I just missed first call out by a spot because two spots. They called out six. So, but I walked away feeling very accomplished, very content because the guys that won, most of them didn't get that much of attention as I got. So it was kind of one of those things because everyone was like, "Dude, you're natural." Like, "Oh my gosh, you're shredded." Like, I was just like, I was expecting a lot more, from the competition. Now the guys look great. There were some really good looking guys, but I was expecting going into like a national level NPC show, like for me to be like last call out. That was my expectation. But it was pretty good. But there was a guy that I beat in Charlotte that also went to Junior USA in the smaller class, in the shorter class, who actually won his pro card.
So he turned
He
around
won.
and improved big time since.
No, it's just because I was in a different height. They
Oh,
remember.
it's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
hike, the
So
class.
yeah, so that no, I mean he definitely looked better, but I still think that I could have beaten him, which would have probably awarded me my pro card. So with that understanding alone, I kind of walked away with like my head feeling high and no regrets because I really wanted to just answer the question, do I belong competing with these guys because, like I said, my expectation was that I don't have no business being on the same stage as these guys. But seeing other people do it, like Kendall, Garino, like I've competed against him, and I saw him turn pro, and we had several conversations about it. Him and I, right after he turned pro, I think he did the St. Louis where he turned pro, and then junior nationals or in Chattanooga, I think where he did. Um, so he gave me a lot of words of encouragement. And a few other people that told me like, yeah, go ahead and do it. Like you belong. So I still didn't know what to expect. But I kind of walked away feeling like, okay, yeah, I can definitely stand on stage with these guys. Like they're doing the same reps as me. They're eating the same chicken, same rice as me. Like, why not? Right. So I felt good about that. So it was an overall very good experience. The show itself, because it's a national show, it's a lot of people there. So they are very efficient. So I was once I kind of got used to the rhythm of like not endless quarter turns, like boom, front shots, side shots, go to the back, maybe one other front shot, like a hands over head abdominal or most muscular, boom, done. Like, so I was like, okay, this is, I liked it. At the same time, it was kind of like, okay, well, I kind of feel like I get a little bit better the longer I pose. So I kind of was like, maybe I could have got a better look and maybe worked my way into that first call out. But, it is what it is. Like I said, I had no regrets. It was very smooth. I got good feedback from Tyler Mannion, Sandy, these judges that I've seen over the years, watching NPC and IFBB shows, like being able to get in front of them and have like all the years that they've been looking at people and they know exactly what they're looking at. And for them to be able to kind of tell me exactly, this is what you need to go to the next level. So that was a very valuable experience. And I was able to bring that back and apply some of that feedback to my physique to bring the package that I brought to the stage this year.
Awesome. It sounds like even though you were happy with the the outcome of that show, it sounds like you still have, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe a little unfinished business. Just like,
Yeah.
man, like if I was in that other class, I might have been able to sneak a pro card. Man, if I
Yeah.
tend to get better as I pose, but if I could really nail it early on, I could have maybe increased my placing. Like, I
Yeah.
got this feedback, good feedback. Like I can implement these things and improve and maybe grab that pro card. Is that accurate? That you got some unfinished business?
100%. There's definitely some unfinished business there. I kind of maybe not necessarily regret, but I kind of wish that I would have taken that step a little bit earlier in my career. Um, but like I said, I'm still performing at a peak level. I'm still making improvements. There are some improvements that I don't know that I can make if it's or I don't know that it's realistic for me to expect at 37 to on my physique.
You're in your
So
prime, man.
I feel it. Well, some days I
That's when
feel it,
most of
some
these
days I
guys
don't.
are doing their best, is in their late
Yeah,
30s, early 40s. You look at the Brian Whitakers and
yeah,
Doug Millers and a lot of these
yeah,
guys. I
yeah.
mean, that's the prime time. You
Yeah.
see guys doing really well and younger guys, but a lot of people
So
when they hit their best, it's
yeah,
late 30s, early 40s.
for me, I don't disagree with that at all. For me, I think it's more do I still want it as bad as I did when I was 25 or 30? You see
Sure.
what I'm saying? So because I mean, it's been a while. It's been a little while. I mean, I know there's people that spent a lot longer in this game than I have, but it's been. I mean, I've been competing for 12 years now, and I've been prepping for shows. Like it took me about 2 years before I did my first show that I was like in like a kind of like semi prep mode. So we're looking at like almost 15 years, and I notice each time I compete, the longer I spend in an off season and getting used to like life, taking care of my kid, you know, just the not being in that kind of like
Other
tunnel vision
priorities. Yeah.
mode, the harder it is to get back into that mode, and where I'm just like, yeah, do I really want to suffer this bad? You know, do I really want it like I say I do? And I love training. Like I honestly, I started competing. It's very weird. Like I've shared my story as far as how I started competing, and I apologize if I'm kind of like hijacking and going
No,
all
it's
over the
I
place.
bring you on to listen.
Yeah. But I kind of started competing. I didn't have a love of training. Like I did not. So I
Okay.
started competing. Basically, I kind of was peer pressured into it, right, for years. And I'm an introverted kind of person. Like I stick to myself. I go in the gym. I don't really talk to a lot of people. I just want to come in here and train. And at that time period, like in 2008, 2009, I just was like, I just didn't want to be skinny. I was like maybe 135 pounds. I was a small guy. And there's a lot of people that came in like, oh, you should do a show, you blah 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 blah. And it's just kind of like, you have got to be kidding me. But respectfully, I'd just be like, okay, yeah, yeah, cool. But in my mind, I'm thinking like, you smoking rocks. Like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not getting on stage in a banana hammock, right? But there was one particular guy in one guy in particular is very influential to me. And he kind of was like relentless, or at least what I perceived to be relentless. And I eventually was like, yeah, I'll do the show just because I wanted him to leave me alone. Right. And I was like, this is the only way I can get him to like leave me alone. Like, because no didn't really mean no. I couldn't effectively communicate, no, I don't want to do a show. So I ended up doing the show. And it took me, like I said, about 2 to 3 years from that moment before I actually stepped on stage. But I kind of like committed to it at that point. And when I say I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. Right. And I went through everything that I could find or try to figure out on my own, which was very little. I mean, I'm telling you, like my first prep, I did a 9 week prep, and I just ate boiled chicken, boiled eggs, and bananas. That was my diet. Yeah, until someone educated me on bananas, being the sugar content, and that's a lot of glucose, and I was just like, what's what, I don't know. So I cut the bananas out, and I was just eating boiled chicken and boiled eggs and doing like endless amounts of cardio, like
Oh
you name
man.
it. I would walk. I lived maybe about a few miles from my gym at the time. So I would walk or ride my bike to the gym, do something crazy like legs for like 2.5 hours, and then ride or walk back. Like just, I mean, I sunk down. Like I was shredded, but I mean, I had no muscle. But even still, like I still had more muscle than the division called for. So that first year I did men's physique. The only year that I did men's physique, it was my very first year, because I
Yeah.
didn't know the difference between bodybuilding. I didn't know the difference between men's physique, and at the time it was just bodybuilding and men's physique. And men's physique was very different from men's physique now. It was more like the
Yeah.
beach body. So even still, with me being small, I still had probably too much muscle in that class, and I actually placed at the bottom of the class. But I placed. I think it was fifth. I placed fifth, and I was ecstatic, and I was just like, oh yeah, I want to do this. I went from like, I don't want to do this ever again.
Get
I'm gonna
bit
see
by the
this
bug.
through, and then to like, I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life. So I remember having a conversation. And I was like, I know I had no idea no clue of what I was doing, and any success that I got, it definitely wasn't on for me. I was like, I've been blessed by God. God has definitely like did this for me. So I was like, well, if this is something that like you want to do for me, God, then like here, I will do this for you. You can have it. And like my career just took off from there. So I went from doing shows, uh like I went from the point of where I kind of fell in love with competing, and I didn't really care that much about training, but I needed to be able to train in order to compete, to do my best, to that flip flopping to where I still love competing, but I love training. I fell in love with training, and competing is just a means, a justification for the crazy way I train, because competitors, they're taking it to another level when in their training. And if you're not getting on stage, like it doesn't make sense for you to train that way. Like it really doesn't. So for me to go in and do some of the stuff that I do in the gym, like competing justifies that, you know? But I do love competing. But I fell in love with the training more. So I kind of got to that point somewhere maybe around maybe my second show, maybe 2013, 2014, where I was just like, man, I really love this grind of like coming into the gym and like seeing who's going to win, either me or these weights. And a lot of days it was not me, but I kept showing up and I kept showing up. And a lot of people, they asked me about the package that I bring to the stage now, as far as the density. And it's like you said, like you hit a certain prime, like in your mid 30s, I would say, even in your later 30s. I feel like if you put in the time, you really banged it out. Like in the earlier years, that's when that maturity and that density starts to show. And like I attribute that 100% to how I train. I train like maybe not the smartest. Like I've seen a lot of like today's podcast, people talking about should you do like a lot of these heavy compound movements and do focus more on like, bruh, I don't get into the debates like that, but I will say for me, my physique, the density and the detail that came from like pushing the absolute limits of progressive overload, like, and just pass. I mean, I used to take in my early days of competing, I took every set to failure. Every set that I could take to failure, I would take it to failure. That's not smart. I do not endorse that at all. But I was able to survive that. And that I think the
Build a lot
difference
of
shows,
muscle in the process. Yeah.
yeah, it shows in my physique. It's definitely not something that I would suggest. I was just blessed and fortunate enough to survive that. But and only come away with very minimal injuries. Like I didn't start getting injured until like later in my career. Like the last like 4 or 5 years is where I've started seeing like some injuries. So I've adjusted my training obviously, uh, because I don't recover the same way, and I also have more to kind of live for. Like now that I have a family, I have a
Yeah. You
kid.
have kids, you got other
Yeah,
priorities like we talked about. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not trying to kill myself in the gym anymore. But 10 years ago, I was ready to like bury me in the gym under a pile of 45 plates. Now, not so much.
I think a
Nah, I
lot
want
of
to make
us
it
have
home.
been there at one point or another.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I want
Cool,
to make
man.
it home now.
But jumping off to a tangential topic, like you said, you did the Florida Pro this year. Do you have plans to compete the rest of the year, or are you just doing the spring? Well, I'd say spring season, but it's kind of summer. But spring
Yeah.
season and calling it, or what's the
Um.
plan?
So as of this is one of those very hard questions, and these are one of those questions that I get like every week. So what's next? What's next? What's next? Right? Um. And I kind of really want to slow it down and take it one day, 1 week, 1 month at a time. So to answer your question, I don't have solidified plans for another show for this season. However, there have been some shows that I have really been wanting or eyeballing. Um, One has been the Mr. America. I've always wanted to. That's always been on my list. Well, at least for the last 3 or 4 or 5 years
Yeah,
since they
sure.
brought it back, right? I've definitely wanted to do that. Um, I never really got justification or redemption from the Yorton. Um, I think 2021. No disrespect to Magnum, he's like awesome. Like I really look up to him. I got a chance to stand on stage with him in 2018, and I was just like, whoa, this dude is like a specimen. And he didn't even
Yeah.
win that year. Mishak won that year. So, uh,
Speaking of specimens.
right. So like they really like elevated my idea of what was possible for natural bodybuilding when I saw these guys. But 2021, I think like I would have looked good standing next to Magny. So I might not have beat him, but like I think at that time I was cooking. I was firing on all cylinders. So it's unfortunate that that didn't get to happen. But so I think I still have a little bit in me where I want to still kind of like really go out in the top three at the Yorton. Definitely want to win the Yorton. But um, realistically speaking, like we spoke earlier about the NPC and just kind of like narrowly missing that pro card last year. If there is a show that I will end up doing this for the rest of this season or this year, it might end up being a like a local national qualifier show in November for the NPC to give myself a lot of time to get ready for one of the national shows in the NPC and then really just give it everything I got to see if just to see if I can see if it's possible next year.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, there's a lot of shows. Honestly, like there's no shortage of shows. There's no shortage of. I'm a competitor, and when you're a competitor, competitions that's what you do. Like competitions pique my interest. So there's no shortage
Oh
of.
yeah.
So there's a lot. I mean,
It's the biggest challenge, I think. Like it's just about prioritizing of which
yeah,
shows, which organizations do you want to do, and when
yeah,
you're in competition shape, like getting into competition shape is no joke, and it's just your bandwidth is limited. So,
yeah,
every year I compete, like, I'll get questions, oh, you gonna do this show, you gonna do this organization, you
yeah,
gonna do this, and
yeah,
it's like I would love to, but like I this is my priority list and I need
yeah,
to prioritize this. And
yeah,
even in hindsight, I've looked at back seasons like, maybe I didn't prioritize that right. I put some shows on my list and maybe I should have done this show instead. Like it's a challenge. There's a lot of shows, a lot of organizations. So I
yeah,
I
yeah,
experienced that personally and it's tough to, prioritize.
yeah. Man, I'm Worlds, WNBF Worlds, IPE. Like, there's so many. Like,
Yeah.
I've thought about Natural Olympia. Like, I want to chase, like I said, titles or shows that
Where it'd
have
be
the
competitive.
prestige
Yeah.
and that have the big, like the big drawing of talent.
Yeah, you
Because,
want to face off against the best, right?
right. So, like, even in the OCB, like, by no means was I ever the best in the OCB. But my philosophy always was if I can see the ceiling, if I can see my ceiling, then that means I'm close ish to it. And I need to be preparing for the next step. I don't want to be up against the ceiling before I start looking at what's next, right? So like I always wanted to look where are the best people competing, and hey, let's see if I can get in there with them, you know. And every year, like I set like an expectation that I think is like, if I'm honest, like I don't know if this is even realistic for me to even expect. And then every year I go out and I go after it, and like God blesses me and he exceeds that expectation for me. So like I'm at a point now to where like, all right, what's the craziest thing that I could set for myself and then go after that. So that's kind of where the whole NPC thing came in because, like I said, on paper,
Get to
we
beat
should
untested guys. Like you should
be
like
able to be, yeah, we shouldn't. So that's kind of like where I kind of was like, I really before I hang this up, I really want to take a really good stab at putting everything I can into accomplishing that. Even if I never even compete as an IFBB pro in that organization, just to be able to say that I did it and I accomplished it as a natural would be enough for me. Like I would be content with that. But even if it doesn't happen, I'm still like I'm very fortunate and I'm very blessed to have had the career that I have had. Because like I said, I was a person that like I had no I wasn't that guy that grew up watching Arnold or Ronnie Coleman. Like when I started bodybuilding, the only two bodybuilders that I even knew of was Arnold Schwarzenegger, just because he's a mega movie star, and Ronnie Coleman. Those are the only two people that I even knew in bodybuilding. So I had to go back and like really learn my history, like post 2010 about all the way from 1960 on, right? And really learn my and get immersed in it. And I just kind of fell in love with it. So for me, it was never the goal. Like I wasn't that kid and like, oh, I want to be, Dorian Yates, or I want to like, no, that wasn't me. Like you asked me that back then, I would have been like, go kick rocks or something. Like that
yeah,
was
you're
never.
like well you said originally you're like I don't want to do this banana hammock nonsense, right?
Yeah, like no, I'm good. Like I saw people go through it, the process,
Yeah.
and I was like, there's no way I would do that. Come on now, like it doesn't even look fun, right?
And now look at you 12 years of competing, right?
Yeah, and like with no with no um with no intentions of like slowing down. But I do also know that realistically there I will need to slow down because I definitely what I don't want is to just hang on just for the sake of loving competing. Like at the point
Sure.
where I see people that I know that should not beat me start beating me, like I want to go ahead
Go
and
out
make my
on
exit.
your high on a high and yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to leave a bad taste in my mouth and be like, oh yeah, I remember that guy in like 2021 or 2024. He was like a beast, and but like man, like he's a shell. Like no disrespect to anyone that's still doing it because like if you love it, then keep doing it. I just don't want to. I just don't want to clog up the system, right? I still think like if I really still love competing at a point where I've declined, like maybe just keep it to like local shows, but still like going after like the national shows and trying to like win pro cards and stuff like that. Like no, like I think I will be one of those people that are realistic in my physique and know that like yeah, I just don't want to have that kind of presentation. Yeah, so but I see myself as a bodybuilder for the rest of my life.
I can understand that perspective.
Yeah.
And yeah, and like you said, you at this point you love the training part. So you've
Yeah.
transitioned and love the training part, even though that's
Yeah.
not how you started. But
Yeah.
um yeah, we're coming up on about an hour here. So
Yeah.
I wanna something that we do with a lot of our guests is leave with a closing remark. So um for you specifically, you've been in the game 12 years, in competing 12 years. You've seen a transition in your own self in terms of, what parts of bodybuilding you love, right? So what would you say to a young athlete just getting in the game? Maybe somebody who's kind of skeptical about this whole banana hammock thing.
Um, that's very interesting. Like I get this question a lot, and I always seem to have like a different answer every time. Um, when it comes to like first time, or if you're just getting into it, just take take your time and absorb what you can absorb. We kind of have progressed into like, I guess maybe social media can be part to blame or a big part to blame, but bodybuilding or competing is like on like a much bigger stage now. Like everyone sees it. We got a whole lot more exposure than when I first started, right? So now it's kind of the glamorous thing. Like I remember when I first started, and I would kind of tell some of my friends, "Oh, I'm gonna do a show, like my first couple of shows," and they would kind of snicker and laugh, like, "Oh, you gonna wear that?" But and are you wearing that baby oil? And I would kind of be like a little bit embarrassed by it or whatever. But I knew it was like, yeah, it's still what I love, but it's not like I'm not gonna ask all my homies to come do my show because like they laugh at it. Versus now, there's a little bit more respect to it because
Yeah.
it's front and center. But at the same time, I get a lot of like younger kids that come up to me or message me on Instagram or whatnot, and they're already talking about like, oh, I want to try to win my pro card, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, and it's just like they have like all of this stuff like just mapped out, and then they're just 0 to 100 trying to get to like a certain status that they think uh is like glamorous. But I tell them a lot of times, like when I turned pro, nothing changed. Not one thing changed. I came home. I got, congratulations and this, that, and the third, but like no one treated me any different in the gym. I didn't get sponsors not like calling me up, knocking, like none of that stuff that you expect to happen, like for your life to be drastically different, really happens like that. So, especially not now because it's very oversaturated. So, like, take your time, absorb everything, learn what you can. So, for me, I had the benefit of when I started competing, I didn't even think that it was even possible for me to turn pro. Like, that was never in my expectation at all. Now, of course, I'm going into shows like I'm training to win, but like when I first started, my expectation was not like, oh, I'm gonna turn pro in 3 years, or I'm gonna turn pro in this. Like, I just love competing, and I was grateful, even if I took an L or if I took last place. I was grateful for the experience because I was learning and I was seeing my body change and I was just absorbing so much. And I think that's missed a lot today because everyone looks at Chris Bumstead or this guy or and they're just like, oh, I want to be like that guy because he has 100 million followers, or I want, or the physique. And it's just like you skip a lot of gyms along that path trying to get to this end destination. But even when you get to that end destination, it's probably not what you expect. So take your time,
One step at a
absorb.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, and really like fall in love with the process. And for me, like I think when I spoke earlier about me continuing to bodybuild for the for the rest of my life, it's because I took the time and I fell in love with that process. And
Yeah.
coming from someone who I had no intentions of falling in love with the process, I just wanted to get through one show. That's it. I just wanted to get through it, just to say I did it, get someone off my back, and have gone about the rest of my life like it never happened. And then, here it is, almost 15 years later, and I'm developed, and the changes that I see in my physique, but also in who I am as a person have come because of the process, not because
Gradual
yeah,
stepwise. Yep.
yeah, not because of me reaching the destination. But
Love
and
that.
even with that being said, like I mean, you probably agree, most people would agree in this game, the goalpost keeps moving.
Yeah.
So if you're only focusing on that destination, like I see a lot of people burn out that way because the goalpost continues to move. So you got to fall in love with that process and see, the changes that you are making along the way and see the value in that. Because we all know, we've all been to shows where someone should have won and they didn't, whether we call it politics, whatever the reason, it's a subjective sport, whatever, it doesn't really matter. If you hang everything on this outcome, you're probably not going to last too long in the sport. I'll say that.
Yeah, I
So,
think that's an awesome message. Awesome
yeah.
message. Cool, man. Well, I appreciate
Yeah.
you taking the time with me and
Yeah.
chatting and sharing a little
Likewise.
bit about
Yeah.
yourself. So,
Mm-hmm.
where can people find you? I know where to find you, but
Yeah.
where can people find you?
Um, I am working on growing and being more active on social media, but for right now, you can find me on Instagram. My handle is naturally underscore supernatural. And like I said, I am being more active there. I am thinking about starting a YouTube, so we'll hold off on that. But I'm kind of in the works with that. So for now, you can hit me at naturally supernatural on Instagram. I typically try to respond within a day or two. I've got a lot of stuff going right now, though.
Yeah, kids take priority over a DM, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. 100%. Yep.
Cool, man. I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate you, and I hope to see you at
Likewise.
Mr. America this year. I know
Yeah.
you're still on the fence, but I'll be there, and I hope to see you there. But
I I plan on going for sure. Uh I just don't know whether you'll see me in posing
in
trunks
trunks or
or it's just some shorts or something. Yeah.
just bring them anyways,
Yeah.
even if you're
Yeah. Gotcha. We'll see. We'll see. We'll
cool, man.
see.
Well, like I said, I appreciate you, and thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.
All righty. Take care.